Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My questions are to be directed at to Deputy Secretary Ahrens, if possible. And I'd just like to thank all of you for availing yourselves of this very difficult hearing. I have just a number of short questions.
Sure.
Thank you. What is the estimated cost of the closure of Polk?
The long term, we will have savings from the closing of Polk. But during transition period, we are not anticipating savings. We're currently working with the appropriations staff right now, so we'll have the full analysis to the appropriations staff.
So there is a estimated cost to closure? You just don't have the number
during
yet?
the transition period, there will not be savings.
Okay,
The
but
savings will occur post-closure.
So there has been no estimation of what the closure for the Polk facility would cost?
The savings from it?
No, the cost of closure, for implementing closure. Is there a
Correct.
ballpark or an estimation?
We are currently working with the appropriation staff, so we'll have that full analysis shortly.
Would that be in the Senate or the House?
We're working with all of the appropriation staff.
And so then it would be the same answer for Whitehaven. It's just
Correct.
Undetermined, the cost of closure. And what is the cost for services of the 13,000 waiting? What's the estimated cost? If we, maybe you in the spring testified what that would be, the cost for us as the state to provide for the entire 13,000 on the waiting list.
So the thing to understand about the waiting, there's a few things to understand about the waiting list. First of all, the waiting list is 13,000 people. About 5,200 of those individuals are in what we consider the emergency category, needing services now or within the next 6 months. The types of services those individuals need vary. There are some of those individuals are looking for 24/7 residential type program. Some of those individuals are looking for supports with employment, respite care for their family members. So that varies. The remainder of the people of that 13,000 fall into two categories. One is critical, which means people need services within the next 2 years. And then we also have what's called a planning category. So people know they will need services within the next 5 years. So to do that analysis, you really have to take all of that into account. The other thing that we need to understand about the waiting list is only about 20% of people who have an intellectual or developmental disability are even known to our system currently. So we currently have about 57,000 people that are enrolled for services, but there are many more people out there in Pennsylvania that have a diagnosis, if we just look at census data and prevalence, that are unknown to us. So what we see with the waiting list is as people approach graduation from high school, we see that's when people come to us. So definitely the waiting list contains a spike around age 17, 18 when individuals and families are starting to prepare for that transition. So it is definitely a very dynamic waiting list, and what people are looking for varies tremendously.
That's very helpful. And is there, of the 5,200 emergency individuals, is there a ballpark number for the state looking at funding that? If the legislature, I mean, many of us are here today.
We can provide that for you.
That would be excellent. And you had mentioned in your testimony that there was a percentage of Hamburg employees who were, this is just on the staffing side, during the Hamburg closure, that there was a percentage that were offered employment, or they were specifically offered state employment. Can you?
By the time, by June of this year, every Hamburg employee that wanted state employment was offered state employment.
So would that be considered a cost shift and not a savings?
Well, I can only tell you about impact on our system. So we did have, some of those individuals did move to one of our other state centers. They moved to employment one of our other state centers. Others moved on to corrections or the county assistance offices. So in terms of, I can only give you budget for ODP.
And just two more really quick ones. So we had the hearing in May with the Human Services Committee where Tom Kashadis from Whitehaven and Sharon McCabe from Polk and Susan Jennings Whitehaven had testified. Do you feel that that testimony had a negative impact, or that Whitehaven and Polk could be somehow considered to be more vocal advocates, and that then somehow translated into what's occurring today with closure?
No, the state, the decision to close state centers takes into account a lot of factors. So as someone who administers programs for ODP, we are constantly looking at all of our programs, and some of the things to take into account when you're looking at the 4 state centers are the age of infrastructure, the condition of infrastructure, the census, where admissions are coming from, any kind of hiring issues, the number of residents, cost per resident. So all of those things are taken into account, the needs of the individuals being served in each of those centers. So decisions about which center is really based on that combination of factors. To give you an example of age and condition, in terms of Polk Center, I think, some of the information that's hit the news is about the water treatment plant and how we're proceeding with this big capital project around the water treatment plant. But that's not actually even the end of the water problems that we have at Polk. We have had Legionella at Polk since December of 2018 and have been working to eradicate it. Our last series of tests, we still have Legionella
Secretary,
at Polk.
thank you. I have other people that want to ask questions.